Welcome to this learning session brought to you by Community of Practice Team and Group Coaching, ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter. Allow me to introduce you to the hosting team for this session. My name is Sagorika Kanthare and I'm your host for today. And with me, I have the hosting team, Kavita Lobo, who also leads the Community of Practice along with me. And we have Nandini Agaskar. So Nandini helps us with the admin and tech, and Nandini works very closely with the ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter Management Committee. So just a few hygiene before we start the session. Kindly keep yourself off camera and be on mute. And this is to avoid any kind of disruption in the transmission that could cause due to the bandwidth issue. During the session, if you have any burning question, please put it on the chat. And Kavita is there to collect all of them, and she will share it with the speaker or answer it towards the end of the session. We also request all the participants to come on camera for a group photo before we start the Q&A session, which I will prompt. And we will also launch a quick feedback poll thereafter, after the Q&A session. For those who wish to claim the CCUs for this session, you will see a link posted by Nandini. And there'll also be a feedback poll link which will be shared by her. Please ensure that you enter your full name in the link as you would want it to appear in the CCU certificate. And also please mention the correct email ID so that it reaches you. We also would like to invite you all to stay back for about 10 minutes after the session for a quick networking, only if we do not exceed the time for the session. So let's get straight with the topic. So today's topic is laser coaching in the context of group coaching. So laser coaching involves brief one-to-one coaching during the session. It entails spending about 7 to 10 minutes coaching individual group members on topic of their choice or that is related to the group general group topic. We have Jennifer here to brief us more on what this laser coaching is and how it is to be applied. So some of the learning goals today that we have: what is laser coaching and what is needed in order to make it successful? How and when laser coaching can be positioned? How does your presence, style, and superpowers influence what you incorporate as group coach? Expanding your own range and toolkit as group and team coach. So today's speaker, as I mentioned, is Jennifer Britton, and she's graciously agreed to share her knowledge and wisdom with us on group coaching today, despite her busy schedule. Just a brief about Jennifer. Jennifer Britton is a trailblazing figure in coaching, celebrated author, dynamic speaker who has significantly impacted the coaching community. With over a decade dedicated to coaching, writing, and speaking, Jennifer specializes in coaching one-to-many group and team coaching. Her journey begins with group coaching essentials and team coaching essentials, evolving into 10 course pathway in 2006. In 2009, Jennifer made history with her first book on effective group coaching. There's one book which I'm referring to, and I find it amazing, which is the first book of group coaching in the world, celebrating the 10th anniversary of one-to-many best practice for team and group coaching this year. She continues to shape the coaching landscape. A Reconnected Workspace book offers indispensable guidance in navigating virtual, remote, and hybrid work environment. As a founder and CEO of Lead Coach of Potentials Realize, Jennifer is driving force in coaching. Her TEDx Coaching Teams Through Chaos has resonated globally, amassing over 30,000 views. Explore her ICFCC offerings, coaching supervision, mentor coaching at www.group coaching essentials. Jennifer's unwavering commitment to coaching excellence, groundbreaking contribution, and dynamic speaking makes her a luminary in the coaching world. So get ready to inspired by her wisdom and her insights today. Before I hand over the mic to her, a fun fact about Jennifer: on Jan 19, 2024, which is this year, Jennifer, along with more than 525 others, came together during a 3-hour period to create a vision board in video hangout coordinated by Women in Cloud, becoming the Guinness Book of Record world record. So super feat, Jennifer, and congratulations from all of us from the ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter. So over to you, Jennifer. We are eagerly waiting to listen to what you have for us.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. And it's really a pleasure to join you today. It is just after 7 o'clock, 7:30 here in Toronto. So good morning to all of you. Good evening. I know as many of you are dialing in, I know it's been a long Wednesday. So thank you for taking time to join us to talk about group coaching. We're going to really laser into group coaching today, again, with that focus of laser. I'm going to share my screen, and we'd really like to welcome you to share your questions as we go. So put those in chat. We will reserve questions till the end, and really hope that out of today, you are able to think about how this can help you continue to innovate. I was really taken by the innovate, co-create, and flourish, because I think so much of our work as group and team coaches is about that ongoing creation with our clients. So you heard a lot already about what we're doing. We're really looking at two main pieces. One, laser coaching. What is it? How do we make it work in the context of group coaching? And then we're going to widen our lens. We're going to then look at who you are as a coach, because in the realm of coaching many, group and team coaching, our presence has such a significant impact on how we show up. So if you know anything about me, I'm passionate about helping coaches do their best work. I am now joined by a team here at Potentials Realize. We're often known as just as simply as groupcoachingessentials.ca. And we are a one-stop shop for all things group and team coaching. So as we go, I want to bring your voices in. And we have, I understand, one of the largest registrations for a community of practice. So I'd love for you to share with us in chat, when you think of laser coaching, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And as you heard Segarita share, we're really looking at, this is a micro moment in a group coaching conversation where you may have 7 to 10 minutes with a group member, having them in, some people call it the hot seat. I like to say it's a coaching chair. And we're helping people go deeper into their focus, their own focus, so that others can learn through the process. So I'd love to bring in your voice. Please turn to chat. It's going to move pretty quickly, but when you think of laser coaching, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you? I want to really bring your ideas in here. We're seeing words like focus, zooming in, attention and energy, nail the issue, more focus, focus, focus. Absolutely. Creating transformational change. These are some of the words, but notice how it really is that focusing in, that laser, that targeting, the precision, the speed. What's holding you back? Let's talk about that. And it's independent one-on-one. It can be incisive. And again, that word focus. So what I want us to do today is really think about how you can, and thank you to Sunil, he said sharpen, right? I think laser focus, laser coaching helps all of us, not just the coach, but also the clients that we're working with. Really think about, how do they zoom in? Now, there's an interesting dichotomy, one of the many dichotomies in this work of coaching many. We want to slow down in order to speed up. We want to zoom in order to see the big picture. So I also want to put out at the very front of today's conversation this notion of dichotomy. What is that tension that is going to help not only you, but the entire group learn with and from each other? And so I think it's important that we really preface that laser coaching is not just a benefit to the person being coached, but it is a benefit to everyone in the room. So let's dive in. And again, I want to sort of level set. In this first part of our presentation today, we're really focusing just on group coaching. And I still today get lots of questions, what's group coaching? How does it differ from team coaching? How does it differ from one-on-one? And I think it's really important that in this context, we're really looking at this sort of almost hub and spoke model where the coach is working with that group. It might be 4 to 8, which is our typical sort of virtual space, but it can be upwards of 15. Again, ICF does sort of boundarize or have a boundary of 15 as the maximum group size for one group coach to work with a group. If you're beyond 15, we're looking at co-coaching, which is a whole other conversation. And we'll touch on that a little bit as we think about our presence. Now, in group coaching, we can have a lot of derivatives, right? We may have, hopefully, groups that are coming together for a shared interest. So again, it might be new leaders who are coming together to explore their leadership development. Could be parents coming together wanting to be a better parent. But group coaching works really well when we can find that common theme. And when I say we, I don't just mean the coach. It's actually our role with the group to identify what is that common element, what is the common theme that is helping us collectively all learn with and move with each other. And with that in mind, these conversations, as many of you know, because I'm sure you are group coaches, and just let us know in chat if you are already group coaching, not just team coaching, but group coaching. But there's this real width and breadth of the conversation, right? It's wide. And this is where what I found, even as a junior coach myself, people loved that collective learning. And in fact, one of the first series of programs I ran was called the 90-Day Biz Success Program. It's evolved over the years. Now it's a one-year program that we meet bi-weekly for. But at that first iteration, it was always a group call supported by some one-on-ones separately every other week. And as my work grew, I let go of that one-on-one time. And as I was tracking evaluations, what I kept hearing from the groups that only had the broad strokes was, I really missed having time with you. I missed going deep on my own issues. And that was a signal for me back in 2006 to say, what is something that we can do to inject this one-on-one time? And so today we're really going to talk about using laser coaching in the conversation with groups, as well as outside of the conversation with groups. Because I do feel that, especially in today's world in 2024, people want to take that deep dive into areas of focus. Now, with group coaching, again, our stance is a little different. We are often at the hub. So groups typically form when we join them, and they disband when we wrap up the coaching process. So that means a very heavy focus on structure, right? I want you to be thinking about using process not to direct the conversation, but we're using process to help people come together and journey together, even on their own roadmap. So chances are, while people have a similar interest, they are going to have their own roadmap. They're going to have their own coaching goals. They're going to have their own elements that they are working on. That means that our range as a coach needs to be even bigger, because one client might see the world in broad strokes. Another client might see the granular sort of like ground view. The third group member might be up on the mountaintop, and our fourth member might want to be just slowing things down. So today I want to invite you to think about, how do you hold the space for the diversity that exists within your groups? It means that we need to keep growing. And I know even for me as a group coach, you know, I've been doing this work full time for 20 years come April 7th. That'll be my 20th anniversary full time. But I was coaching for a few years before that as a leader when I worked for the United Nations. And a lot of my work in those days was also with groups. It was with communities. It was also with teams, with governments. But, you know, the heart of all of this is connection and relationships. So I want you to think about, what does it mean to take a deep dive with one person while we're doing that in the context of many? Because what we're looking at is creating these learning communities. And the language we're using really today is, it's about the collective, right? How are we harnessing the power of the collective? And I would assert that in most group coaching processes, we have that collective learning, but also through the introduction of one-on-one and laser coaching, we can have that individual focus, helping people move quickly. Now, you'll notice here, if you're coming in, we're just looking at some of the differences with group coaching, with teams, and also with one-on-one. But it really means that our focus on the start and end of the process is key. Unlike teams, which are together all the time, groups are forming and reforming every time we come together with them. They don't always, or I would say they rarely have their own life cycle. The coach is playing that integral or integral goal and role. And so with that, because everyone is coming together and usually on their path, there may be a stronger focus on goals. And the goal framework I like to use with my clients is having them create a one-page plan between session 1 and 2. So as we come together, that first session, if you're new to group coaching, almost every first session with a group is pretty similar. We want to have elements like ways of working, introductions from each person. And those introductions might be, my name is Jennifer. Here's something unique I bring to the group, and this is what you can count on me for. We want to set people up for what's unique that they're bringing to the group and how can we rely on each other? Because at the heart of this work is trust and connection. If the group does not trust each other, if the group does not feel connected with each other, the conversation is just going to stay on the surface. It's not going to drop into the deep layers of coaching, which I assert in my writing gets at belief systems, into assumptions, into sort of those invisible elements below the waterline. It's those invisible elements below the waterline, our assumptions, our beliefs, our values, that really shape and help transform, if we can use that word that we saw in the chat earlier. So these are some of the differences. And again, I want to bring your voice in. I'm curious for you, what do you see as some of the differences with group coaching compared to team coaching, where we're focusing on that alignment of the team? We're helping teams really get their own momentum going towards their goals, their objectives, their vision. And of course, we have one-on-one. So what do you see as some of the differences with one-on-one, team, and group coaching? Just pop that in chat. We want to invite you to be active. We've got almost 100 people live in the room now, and we will be doing some breakout work in a little bit. So please just turn to chat. I'd love to hear what you see as a difference with group coaching. I've just shared a lot of the things that I think are quite important in our work as practitioner group coaches, but there are probably some more. So notice, each have their own path on a common theme we are working on. Yes, and I think that's such an important element. We want to help people recognize and celebrate that they're on their own path. We want to avoid also this trap of blanking out on the word of like comparison is the word I'm looking for, right? We want to recognize and celebrate that everyone's got their own roadmap. My map is different than your map, but we can come together and learn together. And that is really at the heart of this work. We also have one of the differences is brainstorming. So what else? Celebrating differences, cross-pollination of ideas and resolutions. We also have psychological safety is key. Absolutely. If we don't have that, it's really hard to enter into a coaching conversation. We might have a conversation, but it's not at the same depth. Also, and it's moving pretty fast now, so let me see. Group and team coaching hinges on collectivism. Yes. Being together the first time as opposed to ongoing association. And Sunil says there is not a team leader in group coaching. Absolutely. These people might be supported by many different systems, which also creates an interesting layer as well. There could be similarities and differences in our approach to the goals, and that too calls on your range. We also have recognizing common blocking beliefs and addressing individual plus collective maps together, finding a common thread that appeals individually too. We've got a few more comments here. Unity in diversity. And I think that's really key. It's always a balance of how are we similar? How are we different? How do we find the common ground that's going to help all of us continue to grow? Or as we even use your language, to innovate, co-create, and flourish, right? Because hopefully through each of these touch points, we are learning more about ourselves through the involvement of others. Couple more comments here. Group may have conflicting objectives to achieve. Yeah, their pathways may be completely different. So how do we learn about ourselves? How do we learn about working across differences? How do we learn about the value of differing perspectives when we are working with other people who may not have a relationship with us in the long term? again, teams usually have one defined objective, which binds them. So it's interesting as we embark on this work, whether you are new to it or seasoned, I think it's always interesting to ask ourselves as practitioners, what are we comfortable with and what is outside of our comfort zone? So a couple more comments here: being yourself in a new setting with new people, conflicting belief systems, and the need to have inclusive dialogue and progress, absolutely, and inclusive process as well. And it may also be effective in encouraging participation, which may be difficult to express individually. One of the areas that I want us to be thinking about today throughout our time together is, what is your natural default, right? What do you naturally gravitate to? So, we're all shaped by our experience. I used to work as a leader in post-disaster management. For many years, that was my work with the United Nations, and I led teams that were working at top speed. Even now, as a coach, after 20 years, I'm still on that faster side of speed. And I know that if I'm not creating pause to slow down, I'm actually taking away from my client experience. So really think about your range. What are you doing that's helping, but also sometimes hindering those that you are working with? Because if we go back to our comments here, we have common and divergent objectives being pursued at the same time. I use that term of dichotomies, right? There's a lot of tension in this work. And it's important for us to be comfortable with the and, right? It's not just an either or, it's an and it's a range, and it's a continuum. We have one final comment. I find that although goals and functions may be varied, group members are often surprised and touched by the common humanity and shared stories. And thank you. I think this is a really important piece. Using laser coaching, using our collective dialogue, we want to see how we are unique and maybe a little different, but also similar to those that we are connected with. And again, it's all about learning with and through each other and our stories that we bring to the table. So you're going to have an opportunity to share some of your stories in a short while. We're going to go into some breakouts in just a few minutes. But really, I want you to be noticing, like, what's the common element and what's the different, because our final comment is common objectives, yet different breakthroughs. So thank you for sharing that. Again, I felt that it was important that we really get crisp on what are some of the differences in group coaching. And so for this next little block, we're going to look at the what, when, and how of laser coaching in the context of group, because this is a little different. This is not necessarily something you would do in a team coaching. It really is something that you might do if you look to the right, as I share in From One to Many. You might have some one-on-one call time with people pre-call. My best practice, and we've seen this through research now that's been validated, is in group coaching, we want to do pre-calls. We want to do a 15 or 20-minute pre-call with each person. Who are you? What are you bringing? What made you sign up for this process? Or if you're being like voluntold, what do you want to get out of the experience? And what are one or two of your coaching goals? Sometimes people say, I don't know, but because you're doing these calls before the group meets, you're now priming them, right? If we think about neuroscience, we're priming people for the experience. So I'd really like to invite you to recognize that laser coaching doesn't just happen in the moment with the person in the chair around being coached in front of everyone. It actually starts with our pre-calls. And those pre-calls are essential in building the trust, safety, and connection. And I do this little triangle because that's what it's sort of the way I visualize it in my writing for the last 7, 8 years. It's trust, safety, and connection. We need to really grow that trust individually with each group member, and then use that first call as the opportunity for group members to connect with each other. Now, we're also going to talk about laser coaching opportunities in between sessions, right? So you might have group calls plus individual one-on-one calls. I shared a little bit about that 90-day biz success experience years ago, where I dropped the one-on-one calls in between the sessions. And for a couple of cohorts, people were like, I really love the group stuff, but I wish I could have gone a bit deeper on my own. And that was really the signal to say, you know what, we need to start introducing something, whether it's one-on-one calls between sessions, or you could also have peer conversations in between sessions, where maybe a dyad, 2 people, or a triad, 3 people come together. What I've been noticing recently, and again, as a practitioner, it's been very fascinating to see changes over 2 decades. But one of the things I'm noticing in this last year is people are really hungry for peer dialogue. And so with a lot of larger coaching groups, sometimes organizations are saying, we can't have just 4 to 8 people in a group. Budget-wise, we need to have 12 to 15 people. And so if we have 12 to 15 people, automatically our trust, safety, and connection is weaker. So what I've done is usually invite the group to consider, could we do some peer conversations in between our group calls? And the groups that have said yes, and where I've actually pulled their names out of a hat in front of them on the call, that has created a whole new layer of learning. So while it's not laser coaching formally, it is peer coaching. And I want to really put on the space, how do we think about how we can activate peers? Because as coaching cultures evolve, right, many of our clients are looking to evolve coaching cultures. And that's where I think one-on-one and peer comes in. Another place where I think laser coaching is valuable in check-ins, right? We might be looking at successes, quick wins, roadblocks, or burning issues. And as you heard Sagarita say at the start, typically laser coaching is very crisp. It's 7 to 10 minutes. It might be 15 minutes, but it's not the same length and depth of a 60-minute coaching conversation. And so with this, it may be more like a check-in. What were your successes or your quick wins? What have been your roadblocks or your burning issues? And you could do this with a group of like any size. Yesterday afternoon, my final call of the day was actually a check-in call with a group that are considered champions in their organizations. We do these quarterly check-ins, and sometimes they bring areas that they wanted to explore, but I sense that they were really busy because we didn't get anything before the call. And so everyone came to the call and they were sort of like, well, we don't have anything to talk about. Where should we go? We have 90 minutes. So what do you think I said? I said, listen, let's check in. We'll start with what's been a quick win. And let's also hear what's the stretch point for you. And literally that co-created the 90 minutes. We had over the 90 minutes, some people come, some people go, which is typical in groups these days. But we had about 15 people during the 90-minute course of the call. And a couple people said at the end, they were like, wow, like we really covered a lot of ground. And I said, what do you think that was about? And it was like, well, because we created it, right? Back to co-create. How do we empower groups, especially in organizations, really think about how they can be doing this, even without us? Because we've been working with this organization, and I say we, it's a partner and I, we co-created a brand together a decade ago. And we've been working with this group in much like it's thousands of people. So it's a very big group, but like in this program format now for 3 years, right? The programming probably will go 4 or 5 years with us being heavily involved, but I would foresee that probably by year, maybe even by next year, we might have some of those champions stepping into more of a peer coaching role. And that's part of this evolution. So like at the heart of this is laser coaching. And I wanted to take us back to one of the sort of thought leaders I grew with as I came into the coaching profession years ago. And many of you are probably familiar with Thomas Leonard, right? Yes. And he wrote back in 2002, laser coaching is defined as a specialized coaching technique and an approach that promotes quick alignment, a rapid sense of relief, and a way of quickly unblocking someone who may have felt stuck in their way of thinking for a long time. So whether it's a top of mind or a very deeply based element, laser coaching really is an opportunity for someone to bring to the conversation something that is on their mind and in their body. And so again, to do this quickly, we need to activate all of the things available to us. That's not only questions, but we may need to get to the somatic level. We may need to invite people to get up, stand up, do a shift, draw something out. So I also want us, in the spirit of today's conversation with laser coaching, to also think about, back to your range. What are you doing? What are you doing every time? And what are you not doing? So I would say, you know, my comfort zone is usually, let's talk about it, let's write it out. Do I do as much somatic coaching or kinesthetic coaching as I could? I've started doing it again, you know, because I really recognize that these years of sitting in our chairs has sort of dampened our kinesthetic touch point. And if we look at sort of across our sort of industry right now, at some of the frameworks that are coming back into vogue, things like head, heart, guts. You know, head, heart, guts model is something one of my clients used 15 years ago with their leaders. And it was a way to disrupt. It was a way to help people really zoom into, back to lasering, what's really going on around this issue. What am I saying from the head? What am I saying from the heart? What am I saying from the gut? In today's quick world, we've got to have these quick touch points, things that will help people zoom in, as some of you said, incisively to the topic. Now, is that the only thing we want to do? No, because once we do a laser, we also want to leave people with the space of the inquiry. And just a reminder, as coaches, that whole toolkit of inquiry or inquiry, right? We pronounce it differently in different parts of the world, but an inquiry or inquiry is, again, a question our clients will percolate on. And so as much as we may laser in, we also want to have the expansive space of an inquiry that people leave the call with. An inquiry could be, if you're doing work with, say, work-life issues, what does it mean to surrender, right? Maybe you have someone that's so driven, and the opposite would be, what does it mean to surrender? I had a call the other day, and the inquiry for that person in growing their business was, really, what do I need to experiment with? They could not answer that question in the moment, but they had to take it away. So I continue to talk. We're going to get to some breakouts in just a minute. What we're going to talk about is, again, we want to hear from you. What is your experience with laser coaching? Typically, I default to one of two things. Beyond the pre-call, beyond the call in between sessions, I will often do this hot seat coaching where everyone gets a chance to be heard. So in fact, my group at the top of the next hour is a group that we are now 7 calls out of 9 calls. This group meets bi-weekly. We started in October. We're wrapping up at the beginning of March. And this is a group and an organization that is part of a very large, thousands of people organization, yet they are all leaders. And some of them work in like client-facing roles, others work in administrative roles. So this program is in its 3rd year, it's in its 3rd cohort. And what's interesting is people come together at the start and they feel like they are so different, right? I think it's fair to say this is an educational format. Someone's, you know, a coach, someone's working in the cafeteria system and leading that whole environment. Another person's in talent, another person's like a teacher. And it, you know, I've seen this now 3 cohorts. Everyone is coming from very different walks of life. And they might think that they are having very different challenges. Well, we explore things like strengths, and then everyone has an opportunity each week to bring an opportunity or challenge that they're facing in their work. So the frame that these groups have agreed to is bring an opportunity or a challenge you're experiencing in your work. And that leaves us, if the group is 5, because 5 is their maximum group size. My group this year, we only have 3, so we have more than 8 to 10 minutes each, but we have, you know, 15 to sort of 17 minutes to really zoom in. And so as I coach someone, I want to also prime the people who are listening, the other group members. To make laser coaching work, we need to prime people, ask people to listen to the question I'm asking. Listen into the question I'm asking, and 2, notice the impact that question is having on your peer. Is that person getting lit up? Are they furrowing their brow because they're not sure, or they're thinking? Are they being silent? I like to ask that because we're trying to build a peer coaching culture as well, right? So we want people to be noticing the question, noticing the reaction to the question. And then because they're also coaching clients, they get to think about, how does this question connect with you? What's the connection of this question with you? And that is really where the learning across the group happens. As a coach, you might not be getting this like this wow sense every call when you do laser coaching, because people are really, in many ways, in their head at times. But be asking your groups every call, what was valuable about our conversation today? And this is where, and we started hearing it again, it's a 9-series coaching. By series 3 and 4, I started hearing, wow, when I joined this group, I thought we might be really different because our work is really different. But you know what? I'm learning so much from each of you. Thank you for what you're bringing. So I would have not picked that up naturally, right? I'm curious. I'm asking, what's the value of the work that we're doing together? And so be listening for what they are sharing as valuable. And that's going to help you decide, like, do you incorporate laser coaching every call, or is this something you do once and maybe your approach in other calls is more group centric, where you bring a theme of the week and you're all working towards that theme? So I think this is a really interesting area for you through the feedback with your different cohorts to get a pulse check. Because at our midpoint review a few weeks later, I asked the group, hey, we could also be doing thematically based coaching, where I'm bringing sort of a theme of the week and we all take a collective deep dive. And that would be, instead of doing our hot seat or coaching chair work, what would you like to do? And again, same organization. They really continue this cohort. And I think the same organization really enjoys learning from and with each other. So that is an option. And what we would love for you to do now, because I've now been able to talk about it a little bit, is have you talk about what is at the heart of your work. Now, I also want to bring in Marian Franklin's work. I really love Marian's writing. Many of you might have also seen her book, The Heart of Laser Focus Coaching. We've been talking today laser coaching in a frame of group coaching. Marian has a whole body of work around her approaches to laser focus coaching. And so in preparation for today, I also wanted to look at, like, where are some of the bridges between what I've been doing and calling laser focus coaching for group coaching with what she has this wonderful, like, 200-page book on. And so some of the bridges that I've touched on, number one, themes, right? For this work to happen well with a group, we want to get people listening for the themes that their peers are bringing. So if I'm coaching, let's call it 3 group members, right? As I'll be stepping into after this call, after I coach each person, I'll turn to the group and say, what are the themes you're hearing at the heart of this conversation? What are you hearing? Not what I am hearing, but what are you hearing? And that's sort of layer 1. Layer 2 is, what's important about these themes for you right now? So in addition to doing these laser deep dives with each group member, we're also spending time, could be during the call or at the end of the call, but we're cross-pollinating, as someone said. We're getting them to think about what is going to help you move forward. How can what you've just heard be applied or integrated into your own experience? So if you imagine it, and I'm sure some of you are looking at process, we have, let's keep it really simple. We have 3 group members. I laser coach group member 1, starting off with, what is it that you want to focus on today, right? Laser coaching will only work if the client knows what they want to focus on. So they're prepped, they're primed before the call. It's that opportunity or challenge. People are directly asked and have made an agreement that they will come with the topic they want coaching on. And that allows for this crisp 7 to 10, sometimes 15 minutes coaching to happen. As we go through it, though, we want to make sure we hear the themes across the group and get everyone to think intentionally, what are they learning as they go? And it's through those moments of individual learning, collective learning, that we start to see the shift. There may or may not be alignment, but what I really enjoyed in Marion's book is she talks a lot about alignment in laser focus coaching. And I think someone said this in our chat early on. So if you weren't with us in our chat early on, I asked the group, what does laser focus mean to you? And I think laser focus, because of the crispness of that deep dive, 8 to 10 minutes, it helps us see alignment. It helps us get to the core of an issue. It helps us leave some of the things that are nice to have, but maybe not necessarily a need to have. And that's really key in group coaching, helping people get to the core of an idea. If you've read Effective Group Coaching or From One to Many, my first two books, you'll hear me talk about it in distilling it down to the core, distilling it down to the core. And that distillation, right? I'm a scientist by training. If you think of being in the lab, right, you're adding heat to distill it to the core elements. A lot of our work at times as a group coach is helping our individual group members distill things down. They're doing it themselves by being coached, but they're also doing it by listening to each other, by hearing about, ooh, what is different? If I was in a group with Kavita, I might be like, ooh, I'm really inspired by what Kavita is saying. And I realize I'm on a bit of a different path. And so that's okay, right? We want people to celebrate their uniqueness and their alignment with themselves, right? There is always an individual focus in this work of groups. So we are going to go into breakout. And I think we're ready for breakout now. We've had a lot of people coming and going. What I'd like you to think about with the competencies in mind, right? We are still coaching. We're not facilitating. We're still coaching. We've talked about a variety of different ways you can laser coach. Okay, so just to recap some of those ways. Number one, you might start laser coaching pre-program with your pre-calls with each group member. Who are you? What's brought you here? What do you want out of the experience? Second, we might bring laser coaching into the group process where each person has that 8 to 10 to 15 minutes to look at their own focus. I also mentioned we might do some laser coaching in between calls. That could be one-on-one with you and each group member. It could also, as coaching cultures evolve, be some peer coaching where peers join together as dyads or triads and meet for 15 to 20 minutes in between each call. So there's a variety of different ways we can laser coach. What we want to do is give you an opportunity to share some notes with your colleagues. So we want you to talk about, I think a good sort of umbrella question is, what laser coaching approaches do you gravitate to? Could it be done in the hot seat coaching environment? Do you do pre-calls? What is important for you as you think about helping and supporting your clients? Because ultimately, this is not in service to us. This is in service to our clients. So the broad question we'll invite you to talk to, and you're going to have about 10 minutes. Okay, it'll be about 12 minutes by the time we bring everyone in and out. But we'd like you to talk about what approaches, specifically laser coaching approaches, do you gravitate to? You're probably going to have a bit of time to share a best practice or two. What helps this work, right? So I've shared a variety of different stories, but what helps laser coaching work and get traction in your experience? What we're going to ask is that each group, when they come back, each group has one rapporteur or one note taker or scribe. You can choose your language around this, but the rapporteur is going to turn to their chat, and on behalf of the group, they're going to share their top 3 bullet points. Okay, so the top 3 bullet point for my group might be, we all gravitate to that hot seat coaching notion of being coached in the moment. One thing that we found works is clarity on coaching agenda. And third point might be, we hope that this will add value. So whatever your 3 points are, but we want to cross-pollinate, and we've now got 110 people in the room. So we're going to have groups of approximately 3. Please decide as a triad who is going to be the rapporteur, to include when you get back, not in the breakout, because we will not see it, but when you get to the main room, you're going to share 3 bullet points around what makes laser coaching work, how you want to use it, etc. Okay, clear as mud. We are going to go to breakout now for the next 10 minutes.
Yes.
And I hope that you enjoy it. Sangarita, comment before
Yes.
we go.
Nandini will help us set up the breakout room. So like Jennifer mentioned, there'll be 3 people in the room and you'll get 10 minutes to, coach each other or discuss these points. And at the end of the 10 minutes, you'll be brought back to the main room. So just allow us 1 or 2 minutes for Nandini to set up this breakout room. Nandini?
Yeah, I've already set the setup. I'm just opening the rooms.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy your conversations. And we want to say welcome back to everyone. Again, gotta love technology and all of that. We want to invite you. We've got about 35 minutes left of our time together, 30 minutes actually, and I'll have a hard stop today because I have a group starting in 30 minutes. So here's what we want to hear. We want to start cross-pollinating the learning, right? And that's a key part to making any process work in group coaching. So hopefully you identified someone who would be the rapporteur or the scribe who's going to put some notes in chat. But we hope that you were able to compare notes and discuss, if you're just joining us, whether you do laser coaching, that crisp 7 to 10 or maybe even 15 minutes during the coaching work, before the coaching work, one-on-one with people, or in between coaching sessions. And again, this is in a frame of group coaching. If we did this in team coaching, we'd start getting into some gray ethical areas. So again, we're really zooming today into group coaching. And as we hear from our colleagues in chat, a couple of things I want to draw our attention to. Laser coaching works really well if people are clear on what they want coaching around. Number 2, we also want to watch that we are not shortchanging focus and new insights, focus on awareness for speed. So I said early on in the presentation that there's really a lot of tensions in this work. And in my work as a coach trainer, I'm always getting my coachees, so coaches that are in training, to think about how much of this conversation is getting people to think about action versus the 360 of awareness. And it is, I feel, and this is a bias, but I really think, where does learning really happen? It's not always in action, right? It really is an awareness. And we saw this coming out of the last few years of people being in hyperdrive, right? Really into like, let's get things done. It's the, whether it was the pandemic or just virtual or remote work, but we need to slow it down in order to speed it up. So even if you only have 7 to 10 or even 15 minutes working one-on-one with a client in laser coaching, know that it's not about the speed. It really is about the awareness piece. And there are some key questions that can help you really get this crisp focus, which starting with, what's your focus today? And what do you want out of our time together, right? Keep those as 2 separate questions, of course. You're not asking them together. You're going to say, what's your focus, or what's the topic you brought to our laser coaching today? You'll want to remind people, and that's reminding the person in the coaching chair and the rest of the group, that you might only have 10 minutes. Right? Tell them this is going to be 10 minutes for everyone. We want to make sure everyone gets equal airtime. That's a really important component of group coaching. So once everyone knows, you've got 10 minutes or 12 minutes or 7 minutes, what's your focus? Let them respond. And we'll get you to mute if you don't mind.
Can everybody go on mute, please?
I know where it is. Okay, we're good. I was able to mute them. Sorry to mute you. We're just muted. And also a third question of, what's important about this for you? I love that question of what's important about this for you. And you can use that one-on-one, group, or team. But when we get people to think about their big why or their big agenda, it starts to also frame out the conversation. So these are just a few questions that you may want to use. There are some great responses in the chat, and I'm going to invite you to please save your chat or even take a screenshot of these. So we've got this collective wisdom happening. Things like prior preparation on the theme, focused on breakthrough awareness and aha moments, possibly will require more practice and experience to achieve this in 7 to 8 minutes. Absolutely, right? As we grow as coaches, we get faster. What I can do today in a 20 minutes is way faster than when I was a junior coach. But it's practice. It's building our muscles. So you may just want to set these for 20 minutes, right? It doesn't have to be 7 to 8 minutes. You're going to get a sense with your clients and their feedback what the right amount of time is. So I'm not going to go through everything here, but there's really some gold in these comments. And one that I want to zoom into again is preparation, right? Priming is key. Kavita said that in our sort of in our focus, in our just sort of the main room, really so much of the success here is about priming people, being crisp with process. And crisp with process does not mean crisp with focus. We're still leaving the focus for our individual clients. So my invite is please practice this. If you have questions about this, we're going to go to questions in about 15 minutes. I want to layer on one more thing. Now that you've had your breakouts, we're going to do a little bit about your range as a coach. Because as you can appreciate, to be really successful as a group coach, we need to be meeting the diverse needs of our clients. And I want to share with you a research project that's now 2 years in, because I think it's going to serve you. And if you've ever listened to me on the Remote Pathways podcast, which started in 2019, we wrapped up our 3rd season in 2022, but it takes us through the landscape of some of my characters in writing, which really represent the people I've coached over the years. My latest series of books is called, it's under the Reconnecting Workspaces banner, and it follows the world of the digital dozen. These characters and real people started evolving in 2019, before the pandemic was even on our doorstep. And so I found it really interesting as we've moved through all remote work to hybrid work, to back in the office, to going back to the hybrid. Our experience with clients is really different, but you are probably finding in your groups some of these. Maybe you work with entrepreneurs, maybe you work with salespeople, maybe you work still with people who work from anywhere, or maybe you're working with mentors. I share the DigiDozen or the Digital Dozen with you because all of these people might be in the same group. And part of our success in supporting these very diverse needs is expanding our range. And so I've been training group and team coaches for almost 20 years now. I've been working with groups and teams for more than 2/3 of my life. The first groups that I worked with were as a swimming instructor back when I was 15 years old. And that has grown into this work. I do some work one-on-one, but I really believe in the power of the collective. And each time we're fitting these different puzzle pieces together. The personalities are different, right? You can see them with these other avatars. And that means that our range as a coach needs to continue to expand, to hold that space for the diverse needs. And so in groups, the needs are likely to be more diverse than when we sit down one-on-one. And I would say teams are also, the needs are very diverse. So we want to think about things like, what are the styles involved? What is my style as a coach? What is the style in the group? What approaches do I naturally bring? And what are the focus areas that I bring as a coach? Remember, with groups, we are also having people as resources. Our group members are shaping the process as much as we shape it as a coach. You do not need to direct everything. You do not need to put it all on your shoulders. So that means that we're like really sharing. And I know in the language of the ICF Mumbai, it's really about constant co-creation. Different group members are going to have different needs around that action and awareness, or the doing and the being. And so that means that our range and our toolkit as coaches needs to continue to expand. So I want to spend a few minutes before we go to Q&A, just getting you to think about your strengths, because your strengths are going to be unique to you. And I just want to give you a moment to consider this question of, what are the strengths you bring as a group coach? I embarked, as I said, 2 years ago on this fun research project that has grown in volume because I have seen coaches come with such different skills throughout the years in training environments, whether I'm talking with large groups like this or in our ICF CCE approved programming. And one of the models I introduced way back when, you'll find it back in Effective Group Coaching 2009, something I call the sweet spot. It's evolved over the years, but it really comes back to this notion that at the core of group and team coaching mastery, we have 3 things happening. We bring our superpowers, right? We bring our own strengths. Those get magnified and amplified when we're working with many. Our clients, plural, bring their own styles. And when you're working with a group of 5, that may be 5 different styles. If you're working with a group of team of 15, that's 15 different styles. We're also framed as has had such focus in these last few years of the ecosystem, the system, the context, the environment we coach within. And so the sweet spot, this place of overlap, really is a great opportunity for us to consider in our own going development. So if you're interested, and I'll share the links with the chapter, but I have 2 quizzes, one that's been around for 2 years that gets coaches thinking about what their superpowers are, what their strengths are. And I want to introduce this frame because even in that, you're going to think about what yours is. So we're going to do that by looking at these visuals. As you think about your strengths or your superpowers, similar language, different terminology, which is the image that you gravitate to? And what I'm going to get you to do is look into your screen, think about, do you, as a coach, bring the strengths of that meandering maze, of walking beside people through the maze of life, of maybe working and taking people through a labyrinth and being grounded in the here and now? Or are you a coach that loves the vibrant colors of mixing things together, of bringing different tools? Are you the coach that really wants to help people look at different options? Are you going to go in the yellow door? Are you going to go in door number 2, door number 3? Or maybe your journey with groups and teams has you more as that travel guide, helping people identify what possible routes they might take. I know many of the coaches I've had the privilege to work with are like this spiral lighthouse. They take clients in through this journey. And when I say a group, they bring people together in a safe harbor, and together the group goes up that lighthouse to the top so they can look out at the 360. We also have coaches that are really about lighting the flame. And I have a sort of a mantra of, there are coaches that are known as the catalytic firecracker. They create flame in order to create learning. And we also may have more of that market view where, you know what, I'm a coach that brings everything. Or maybe you're the coach that creates the ripple of the ecosystem. So with that as a very high level, I'd love for you to just lean into your gut, perhaps, and pick the image that represents you. So to do this, we're going to use annotation. We're not going to put it in chat. I want to get a visual collective map. And so we're going to use annotation, which you should find at the top of your screen, where it says you're viewing Jennifer Britton's screen. To the right of that, you should see a view options. And as you click view options, you're now going to have a whole new toolkit show up. It may be on the left side of your screen or across the top. You may see a pen. If you have a pen, just put a check mark on the image that represents one of your superpowers or strengths as a coach, or you can grab a stamp function. A stamp might look like a heart. So depending on what Zoom version you are on, you're either going to see that toolkit at the top or the side. And again, you're finding it by going to, you're viewing Jennifer Britton's screen, look to the right of that, click on view options, and now click on annotate. And once you've figured out which one is you, just circle it, right? Are you the labyrinth again? Are you the ecosystem connector? Are you the paintbrushes, that creative tool master? Are you the person who likes to take people into the doorways of conversation or into the spiral lighthouse? Are you more like a tour guide or someone who is looking at catalyzing energy? So I'm going to get a little view. Can everyone see their annotate? Give me a couple thumbs up if If you can see annotate? Yes or no? It may be a no. Kavita, I can
we can't see at the moment.
You
I
can't
think
see it?
this
Okay.
Zoom, I think the Zoom room has not been, that's not
Activated.
been activated, I think. Yeah.
Okay. We checked before everyone came, but I think as people came in, that didn't give the option. So here's what happens. It happens in every call. We're going to go to chat instead. Let's go to chat then. And just share with us in chat which one is yours. It might not be as powerful as seeing the collective map, but we use what we can. And I think hopefully this is a model of things happen, right? Things happen as we coach. So we've got, again, lots of variety: paintbrush, frame, doors, catalyst, creating ripples, lots of flames, lots of doors, more ripples. Really want you to be thinking about your range, right? Because that is going to influence the tools that you feel comfortable with, right? A person who is the creative tool master with all these paintbrushes might feel really good at creating their own toolbox, right? Going out, and as they go, they might be listening for, oh, what are those tools that I can use? So today we used a few. I just want to spotlight what we did. We've used mostly chat because annotate doesn't work, but we've used visuals, right? How could you create a collage to stimulate some conversation with your groups? If we'd been able to annotate, we might see that 3/4 of the group gravitates to one area, and that could also co-create our focus together. If you are a different kind of coach, maybe you're the catalytic firecracker coach who really uses questions to activate new insights. Or maybe you are taking people on this journey, either through, roadmaps and maps, or maybe through the journey in the spiral staircase. I'd like to leave you today with a bit of an inquiry. What is your range as a coach? Do you just see yourself as one of these? Or do you have the capacity to step into and explore all of these? Because I would assert that to be a great group and team coach, we need to bring this range. We need to build our abilities to work across all of these areas. And today I've been sharing a lot of my own story because I'm stepping into 20 years of business as a group and team coach, and a lot has changed, but a lot remains the same. As all of you are going out and doing your work, you're going to be hopefully on a 20-year journey yourself. And you'll be thinking one day, and it may be one day very soon, it may be right now, where you're thinking, I've sort of got this thing down as group and team coach. I think I know not everything, because we will never know everything as group and team coaches, but there will be a stage where you start to look at who am I? Who am I as a group coach? And I really want to invite you to think about what is that next growth edge. For me, as you may have gathered, I love speed, right? I love speed. I love tools. And so I'm a creative tool master. I have really taken time in these last few years to look at how can I be bringing more of that somatic back in to my work? And how do I slow it down so that I can journey through the labyrinth of conversation? So that's a counterpoint to laser coaching, right? That is a counterpoint to what we've been talking about today. And my hope is that out of today's conversation, you've sort of been inspired to think about, well, do I really bring laser coaching to the conversation? Do we perhaps leave it? Again, you'll want to co-create that with your group. And a lot of it will also depend on what your unique style is as a coach. So I think that's a nice place to sort of leave it. I will leave the quiz link if anyone wants to do the quiz. My goal is to actually have 25,000 coaches take this quiz within the next year, 18 months, because one of my upcoming books is all about the superpowers. So stay tuned. If you've read Effective Group Coaching from One to Many, know that even after that, there's been 5 other books. So the Reconnecting Workspaces series, Plan, Do, Track, Effective Virtual Conversations, and there are probably 2 books coming out this year to add to the coaching world in the 90 days and 90 ways to coach teams and groups, which is based on a 21 book that I released called 90-Day Guide for Success. So we want to leave some time for questions. This is now Q&A. And we're in a big fireside chat area, 100 of you on the call. I wish we had more time, and I apologize that I am going to be dropping at the top of the hour to be with the group. It's my Wednesday morning group that I talked about a little while ago. But what are your questions? Let's see if we can harness some questions here to just continue to layer on what we've talked about today. Again, the different areas.
Yes, Jennifer, we'll start the Q&A in a bit. So first of all, we want to thank you for such an insightful and fantastic session. All of us are so engaged with this session. So before we move on to the Q&A session, we would all call everybody to come and while Kavita is curating all the questions, come on camera so that Nandi can quickly take a group picture for all of us.
I love that. 100 of us together. This is the power of groups, right? And the power of community. So as the team is getting that organized, again, a big thank you. I'm so inspired that you are here today to talk specifically about group and team coaching. I think it was maybe 5-6 years ago that I did something with ICF Mumbai, and you have grown so much as a chapter. So I hope today there's been a bit of a spark that, is going to catch flame, or even maybe just be that ember until it catches flame. We want to really, continue to equip you in your work as group and team coaches.
Jennifer, can you stop sharing so that, she can...
I can stop sharing. I will stop the share so we can see each other.
Yes,
there we go.
Yes.
So you do what
So
you
Nandini,
need to do.
Over to you.
Yes.
And Nandini has also posted the CCU links. So please take some time to, mention a name and the email ID correctly so that
you just need to re-enable the form to accept responses. It's currently locked. It just has to be unlocked.
Okay.
Yeah, not able to open that.
Yeah, we just do that and set it.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
and she will
let's
also
take picture.
share the feedback poll
Okay.
since, it's 7:22. If you could also give your feedback, because it's very important for us to bring you meaningful content.
A minute more, please.
Yes.
Almost done.
And someone had asked about the books. I think if you can go to just Amazon, just Google my name, that may be the easiest place as the list of books continues to grow. Or you can go to our website, groupcoachingessentials.ca is the main website for group coaching. And here's your poll. So we love for you to turn to the poll and respond.
Yeah. Meanwhile, if I may, Sago,
Yes.
because we've got,
you
only
can
a few
start the
minutes
question.
with Jennifer and I,
Yes.
I am sure everybody wants to hear you more. I'm going to quickly share some of the questions that appeared on the chat box, and if you could take that up. First was, and my apologies, I'm not sharing the name of who shared this, so let me just get up front on this one. How we measure the success for this group laser coaching in groups?
So again, I think two-part question, right? We want to ask ourselves, how are we measuring evaluation ongoing? And I think one important piece of success with not only laser coaching, but group coaching is the one-page plan. I mentioned it very briefly at the start of our process today. If you have a copy of some of my latest writing, I talk about this one-page plan, which is simply a 5x5 table that I get group members to fill out between session 1 and 2. That highlights their top 3 to 5 goals for the coaching process that we are doing and undertaking together. So we do want people to identify their coaching goals and rate themselves, right? Back to say, we could use a wheel of life, we could use a wheel of business. On a 1 to 10, where are you? So get people to do some sort of rating at the beginning of the overall coaching process, and then get them to do a rating at the end. Interestingly enough, we're going to be talking more on this next week. I do a community call bi-weekly on Tuesdays from 12 noon Eastern to 12:30. And so in about 10 days, you'll see on my YouTube channel, which is Effective Group Coach, a specific 30-minute call on evaluation and feedback, because we really want to be getting coaches thinking about this in the context of group coaching. How do you do this? This is an excellent question. So more on that. For laser coaching, right, we want to go back to the same questions. What do you want out of your conversation today? What will success look like? And even at the end of the 10 minutes or 7 minutes, what was the value that you got out of this conversation, right? We want to keep asking people, what was the value, or, what's important about what you focused on in your laser today? So that's another feedback piece. All right, Kavita, hopefully that was good and you got a little nugget there.
I completely second you that it was a fantastic question. The second question that I'm going to put up here is, in laser coaching, is it important to build rapport with the coachee?
Absolutely. So the trust, safety, connection, another word for rapport. We need to have that rapport with each of our group members, which is why, again, the pre-call can be so important in building that relationship, right? Not every time it's feasible, but I would, when my clients in organizations say, oh, do we have to do pre-calls? Yes, this is an important part of the coaching process. Coaching begins before the group comes together. So it's building that rapport. It's also helping answer questions. Back to psychological safety, we want individuals to feel safe before they step into a collective space. And we need to take that time also in call one, co-creating our group agreements. I mentioned it, but I want to mention it again, because part of building trust, safety, rapport is very much that co-creating our ways of working. All right, Kavita, next question.
Yeah, I'm going to I think there were a couple of questions around this range that you shared about. So does the range connect to our coaching approach?
Yes.
I think a lot of people are curious about the superpowers that you shared, so where do you understand whether they can understand their own styles better? What does this meaning behind each of this picture? I think a lot of inquiry there.
So again, range is so critical for how we're showing up. And again, probably best resource is to head over to my YouTube channel. You can look it up. So it's all about activating your group and team coaching superpowers. It's been a 2-year project. You'll find recordings on that. Again, there's going to be a new book coming out about it. You can take the quiz, and if you take the quiz, you'll get your own report, right? And you'll find out, am I an ecosystem connector? Love seeing things in systems. Am I more like that spiral lighthouse, doing a really good job at working with people around perspectives and the journey? Am I more of the creative tool master, right? I'm a creative tool master. I lead through tools, having something in my back pocket. I threw different tools out today. Well, what about head, heart, guts? That's different than the wheel. That's different than using visuals and collage. So some of you might be the creative tool master as well. We also have the catalytic firecracker. So back to the fire, right? Some of you may evoke questions and insight through what you do and how you do it, how you ask your questions. So that's a very high level overview of the 5 superpowers. And again, I've been blogging on it, YouTubing on it. It's a whole new, I wouldn't call it a new body of work, because it's an entrenched body of work, but it's a whole side. I now have a 14 CCE approved program on activating your superpowers, because this is so important. This is beyond the basics in group and team coaching. This is now you as an instrument, you as a coach, and your range.
Yes, so I have taken the test, a quiz, and have found my superpower.
And what are you?
I am the labyrinth, grounded labyrinth.
Grounded labyrinth. Amazing.
Yeah.
Again, yeah. So let's go to the next question. We have time for 2 more questions.
Okay, so another question was, does laser coaching have client in the center, and how do you set that for the coach?
Yeah. So every time, right, there's 2 layers of co-creating agreements, which is a critical part of our work as coaches. So number 1, everyone needs to think about what is the topic they want laser coaching on. You may frame it more in that, what's the opportunity you're facing? What's the challenge? That's a bit of a derivative of action research. At the same time, we want to set up the group. So we want people to be listening actively, not sitting back, but listening actively. And as I shared sort of midpoint of today's presentation, listen to my questions, listen to the impact the questions are having, and also think about what this impact has for you. In addition to, let's call it group member A being in the coaching chair, we also then want to ask the group at the end of that laser coaching, what was important about what you just heard? What was important? That's a very broad question, but that's also going to stimulate the collective learning. Take a minute or two on that and then move to client B. Same process, deep dive and now collective learning. Client C, deep dive and now collective learning. Hope that's useful.
Absolutely. I think we'll kind of close it because I can see that we've like reached the end.
7:51, yes.
So I'm going to thank Jennifer once again for this insightful session, and we're thrilled, and I'm sure I'm echoing everyone's feeling out here that how they have received this session. Over to you, Sago.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jennifer, first of all, accepting our invitation and coming and sharing with us such a wonderful session. The words are not enough to express, really. And also sharing some of the name of the books, which, we can refer to further ourselves in terms of our knowledge. Yeah. So we have before we let you go, we have a practice in ICF Mumbai chapter of a word storm, and we want to shower you with that. Okay. So guys, come on chat box. What is that one thing that you are taking away from this session today?
Love it. Thank you very much as you're doing that. Thank you for having me. It really has been a privilege and an honor to spend a little bit of time with you. I hope that I'll be back again to speak with you, maybe more, not waiting another 6 years, but, again, really hope that this will seed conversation and that you'll continue to connect in with our community, right? Everyone is welcome to join us for our bi-weekly community calls. And certainly, in an asynchronous world, tap into the ongoing content. So great, wonderful. And congratulations on where you as a community are continuing to evolve to. I'm inspired. So with that, I need to fade out in just a minute. Thank you to the team for supporting me today as well.
Thank you very much, Jennifer.
All right,
Thank you, everyone.
Be well.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Until we see each other again.
Yeah.
Thank
Stay
you.
in touch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Big thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
She's
Bye-bye.
gone.